Okay. I think we're finally back on track with the podcast. I just finished updating the show notes, and Michael just arrived and will be here shortly. Jimmy, what's with you and picking fights with our guests? John LeMay, Joy Metter, and now Michael? Hey, Michael might get a bit gatekeepery, but comparing him to WHG3 is crossing a line. Am I gonna have to separate you two? Apparently, I need to change your moniker to MIFV's sarcastic producer. Look, just take him out to your secret gun range, drink some Jack Daniels, and get over it. Preferably in that order. I don't need you two shooting laser pistols while intoxicated. Anyway, did you post your overdue Jimmy's Notes blog yet? Oh my Godzilla. Jimmy, did you see this press release that was sent out to all island staff? Oh, man. Well, for one thing, it's in serious need of copy editing. WHG3 must be pulling double duty as the board's envoy and PR manager with Corone gone. But listen to this. This morning, a class action lawsuit was filed against the Monster Island Board of Directors by legal action team lawyer Raymund Martin on behalf of multiple island staff members and tourists. After the secretive owners of the Monsterland Resort and Monster Island Scientific Facility were recently outed by podcast host and film curator Nate Marchand, multiple island staff members and tourists came forward and reported various illegal activities perpetrated by the board. Martin says this will likely be the first step toward a criminal case. He urges anyone with a grievance against the board to sign the class action suit as soon as possible. Took the words right out of my mouth. I have an email here from Raymond saying he's going to bring the paperwork for us to sign to get in on this suit after today's broadcast. I'll gladly sign it. This won't bring Gary back, but hopefully it gives Raymond at least some closure. I don't know how he does it because he's been overwhelmed with work without his paralegal around. Dude, you stroke your ego more than most people pet their... Must be Michael. Play nice, Jimmy. What now? Not Michael? Then who is it?
Hey, Nate!
Gary? Gary! Ah!
Don't hug me so tight, Nate!
Sorry. I just had to make sure you weren't a ghost, you know?
Makes sense. I mean, I have been legally dead for months.
Yeah, which brings up the obvious question, how are you not?
It turns out my phone had a transmitter planted in it by the board that attracted the Gyaos. Dr. Nagamine visited a few weeks ago and found a transceiver in the creature's ear.
Let me guess. The board somehow got wind of your meeting with your contact, conveniently let the Gyaos escape, and switched on the transceiver to make it look like an accident.
Bingo! I'd say it was brilliant if it wasn't so evil.
Then was it your contact the Gyaos ate?
Actually, when I saw the Gyaos coming, I panicked and dropped my phone as we ran. So, the lizard dino bird thingy ate that and not us. We've been hiding ever since.
If I may ask, who's your contact?
Would you believe it's Shitomu Osako?
The police detective played by Yukijiro Hotaru in the Heisei Gamera trilogy?
Yep. He's been trying to start a private investigation business. But, I'm sure his offices were shut down by now.
We'll think of some way to help him. In the meantime, stick around because Raymond is stopping by after the broadcast.
Oh, man. He's gonna freak out. I hope he can get me legally declared alive again.
After giving the world's most powerful group of supervillains a legal punch in the nose, that'll be child's play for him.
I know, right? I just hope he hasn't burned out from doing all that work by himself.
Ask him when he gets here. For now, help yourself to some snacks and soda in the green room. I can neither confirm nor deny that Jimmy has a stash of Jack Daniels in the back of the mini fridge.
Sweet!
Oh, come on! Live from the KIJU studios in beautiful Ogasawara, this is the Monster Island Film Vault, episode 53, Godzilla Raids Again, featuring Michael Hamilton. Hello, Kaiju lovers, and welcome to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast seeking entertainment and enlightenment through tokusatsu. I am your host, Monster Island's very own film curator, Nate Marchand, and with me today is quite possibly one of my most popular guests, maybe, I don't know, he thinks he's the most popular guest I have on this show. He is the co-host of Kaiju Weekly, the co-founder of Kaiju Ramen Magazine, an MIFV Max member, and yes, apparently, Jimmy's former nemesis. You got a lot of those, man. I mean, you got a whole rogues gallery at this point. Anyway, you know him, you love him, Michael, the Kaiju Groupie Hamilton.
What's up, bud? How we doing?
What is that? You were.
I mean, I had to grab something. I had to grab something out of the green room on my way in. Like it's a fully stocked bar back there, man. Like, thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate it. Oh yeah. I mean, you got a pretty good selection. Although I'm not the biggest Jack Daniels fan, so you're gonna have to bring in some more variety next time I'm here.
You found the stash? Oh,
I did. Man. I found the stash. Like, I wasn't the only one looking through that, though. Like, Nathan, who's the guy? Who's the guy in the back? I've never seen him before.
Don't worry about it. You know, it's you'll find out soon enough. It's all right.
I mean, he was nice enough. He seemed, he seemed pretty cool. He was pretty cordial. He had a bit of a weird accent, though.
I think the word you're looking for is lisp, but sure.
I wasn't trying to be mean, though. I'm not gonna just be like, "Oh, the guy has a lisp." I mean, come on. I'm not gonna make fun of somebody that way.
A lisp is not a dirty word around here. Don't worry about it.
Okay, well, that's fine. Also, I had another question. What the hell's up with the front of this building, dude? It looks like it's been like literally through hell and back. Like I ran into some of the mutants coming in, and they're cleaning some kind of weird gunk off the front of the building.
Well, you see, Michael. You know how Travis says he has to see the goo? Well, I think the goo got out for a few minutes last night.
Oh, that's kind of like it's all like weird and like red.
Yeah, like I said, I think the goo got out last night, and the mutants did not have a good time cleaning that up and putting it away.
I thought it was leftover space gunk from when you got shot into space, but it
might have been that too. It might have attracted the goo, unfortunately.
Maybe that actually kind of does make a lot of sense. Also, another question: what happened to all the nifty Gamera King of the Monsters posters that were hung on Main Street coming towards the radio station?
Oh, you apparently didn't see on Twitter, did you?
No, I've been kind of staying off of Twitter.
It's too bad. It's too bad you weren't here on Godzilla Day because the board reversed their decision.
What? The board reversed the decision?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Did you not hear episode 50 and all that? I outed the board. Did you know I worked for supervillains?
No, I haven't listened to episode 50 yet.
You jerk. Yeah, some fan you are. But
I mean, I've had stuff to do, man. I'm running a magazine. I'm doing the majority of the work on Kaiju Weekly, trying to nurse Travis back to health. I mean, it's a lot of work, dude. Like I don't have all the time in the world. Plus, I'm trying to get a little bit of an uptick in my personal life, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah, I understand. But anyway, I outed the board because I found out that they were all a bunch of supervillains, which explains a lot of things that have been going on on the island. Hang on.
There's nothing wrong with supervillains. Supervillains are people too, sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. And they also like torturing their employees and trying to murder people.
Well, if from my perspective, as a listener of MIFV, I've been thoroughly entertained the last year, to be quite honest with you.
Sure you have been. But anyway, unfortunately, because they have been outed, and I just found out this morning that there's a class action lawsuit that's being filed against them by employees of the island and tourists for, various grievances. And unfortunately, attendance on the island has been dropping. In fact, I'm a little bit scared about my job security.
Is the park still open?
The park is still open. It's just that attendance is down. And the board, I think, decided that in order to try to compensate for the fact there are all a bunch of supervillains are about to be taken to task over their supervillainy, they decided to reverse their decision and return the title of King of the Monsters to Godzilla. On his birthday, I might add.
On his birthday, which is appropriate because, Godzilla is more important than Gamera anyway, and it's his birthday. So,
and heck, even Gamera on Twitter was very cordial about it. He was totally okay with it.
Oh, well, that's good. At least the Big Terrapin was in agreement. That's really all that matters. Now, here's the thing that matters to me. Is there any way that you can get your hands on one of those posters? Because I would love to take one home with me.
I might have one or two in my quarters here on the island, and you are welcome to.
And the flags too. I want one of the flags that were hanging out in front of the in front of the KIJU studio as well.
You'll have to talk to Jimmy about that one because I don't have one.
Oh, Jimmy, come on, man. I mean, you didn't even come and pick me up this time around. So could you please, do an old pal a favor there, Jimbo? I know that Danny's the only one that's allowed to call you Jimbo, but I figured since I was your former nemesis and not your nemesis per se, you could do an old friend a solid. I appreciate that, Jimmy. I really do. Yes. You're a good dude. I don't care what Nate says about you.
What? What are you talking about? The man helped save my life when I got shot into space.
Okay. Well, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Jimmy, Nate has never said anything out of the way about you at all, to the best of my knowledge. I can neither confirm nor deny that he said something to me late one night. We're not going to go there. Let's just move on.
Yeah, we're not, because that's not entirely accurate. But, Jimmy and I have worked out our differences. I know there was a time people thought we hated each other, but we really don't. It's for the show, The truth
is fungible, Nathan. You know that.
Yes. Anyway, how'd you get to the island?
Actually, the way I got to the island is pretty pedestrian. Okay, so anytime I know that I have to come to the island, I always go through, because I'm a really big procedures and processes guy. I do it with my day job. We lean a lot on procedures and processes. I respect them, yada, yada, yada. Although they can be a little bit of a headache sometimes, but I digress. So typically before I'm going to come to the island, I put in for a security detail request because, things have been a little, let's just say, weird here on the island. So a little bit of extra security would make me feel a whole lot better. So anyway, I put in for a security request. I filed that with the board. And then about 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail, a very formal, well-written, sort of smelling like cigar letter in the mail.
Yeah, I know which board member wrote that one then.
I have a feeling as well. But it said that my security request had been denied, which I thought was strange. So anyway.
Which makes sense because the board's envoy tried to take over my show while I was shot into space and canceled all of my guest invitations. And Jimmy and I have been desperately trying to fix that.
I did listen to that episode. I will say that is one of the few episodes I've listened to recently was the Monster Island Gatekeepers podcast or something like that. I can't remember. It was him and the sticky guy. What's his name?
Dr. Dorf.
The mayonnaise. I just called him the mayonnaise guy because of the weird comment that the other one made about each other.
Mayo Man. Yeah.
Mayo Man. Yeah, we'll go with Mayo Man. Anyway, I died. That's neither here nor there. So anyway, I got a little concerned after I got my letter from the board. I emailed Jimmy. And strangely, Jimmy didn't even respond to my email. I don't know if you were busy, but typically Jimmy responds to my email. He tells me when he's going to come and pick me up and what he's going to be driving so that I know to look for him. Well, I got nothing. So I had to schedule a commercial flight on Southwest and to get to the island. So, I mean, it was pretty pedestrian, to be honest with you. Although the upside was I didn't have to wear a mask while I was on the plane. So that's good.
Oh, well. Jimmy doesn't make people wear a mask when he flies them here with his robots and ships anyway. So,
well, that's because Jimmy wears a hazmat suit when he's driving whatever he's bringing because he just doesn't. I guess he just doesn't trust people. I mean, I'm a cautious guy too, Jimmy. I get it, but it makes you look kind of like a crazy conspiracy theorist. Not gonna lie.
Oh my gosh. I think they're probably old board mandates that, probably will start getting reversed as well, like everything else, because, well,
I don't know. Oh, speaking of board mandates and things getting reversed, do you think they're ever going to get rid of those ridiculous pink jumpsuits you two are wearing?
I'm already petitioning for it. And let me say, I know a really good lawyer, and I think I've got some leverage considering that, well, I blew their cover. So
I hope so. Maybe before I leave, if I run into any of the board members, because sometimes I'll run into what's his name, the little British man.
Mr. William H. George III, Esquire.
Yeah, sometimes I'll run into him at the pub near the gift shop, and I'll tell you what, I'll put in a good word for you guys, and maybe he'll change the color to say, I don't know, canary yellow. It'll match your eyes.
You must be wearing some very strange contacts because I don't know how my eyes are yellow. Do I look like Data to you?
No, but you have that steely blue eye tint to your eyes that I think a nice pop of yellow could really bring out.
Well,
and then Jimmy has those mud brown eyes that, I don't know what you're going to do about that, Jim, but still I think you'd look good in yellow.
Yeah, I do like bright colors. Anyway, now that story time with Michael is over, we're here to talk about Godzilla Raids Again as part of Godzilla Redux. Getting back to that sub-series here because, hey, I talked about Godzilla films in my previous podcast life, but you know what? I decided I can do it better.
I really appreciate the fact that you're redoing some of these Godzilla films because it's about time. I got to be quite honest with you, and don't tell anybody I said this, but I kind of got tired of Gamera.
You're not the only one. Plus, as I said when I first announced these episodes, Godzilla is good for business. So
Godzilla is good for very good business. Yes.
Yes. And the reason I'm having you on is it's actually a little bit of a unique story. And I want to lead with this because Godzilla Raids Again was your first Godzilla film. And
it was.
You are the only person I know who started with this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the complete opposite for me, because Godzilla Raids Again was one of the last Godzilla movies that I saw for the first time. And I'm pretty sure it was the last of the Showa movies that I saw for the first time, because it was a pain in the neck to find for years.
Really?
It really was. Until Classic Media released it on DVD, it was almost impossible to find. It got released on VHS once, I think in the late 80s, and that was the Gigantis version. And so it was very difficult to come by unless you went by other methods.
What other methods? Like back alley DVD, back alley DVD retailers? Like what other methods
Basically.
are you talking about? Okay, just asking.
Yeah.
I mean, what you do in the off hours is your business.
I have my ways.
Right. But yeah, you're right. So this was my first G film. I remember watching this as a child. It used to come on TMC or AMC all the time. But back then it was called, it was called Gigantis the Fire Monster. Sometimes, depending on what channel it was on, sometimes on the TV Guide, back when that was a thing, sometimes they would call it Godzilla Raids Again. But for the most part, I knew it as Gigantis the Fire Monster. And I remember thinking to myself, hey, that kind of looks like Godzilla, but they're not calling him Godzilla. They're calling him Gigantis. And and my little brain does not understand why that is. it was because it was, for not until many, many, many years later, I found out that it was actually, oh, hey, that's Godzilla. That's a sequel to 1954. Mm-hmm. So yes, I did start with Godzilla Raids Again. It does hold a very special place in my heart, specifically the dub with all of its flaws and beauty.
Oh man, we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
But I do. I appreciate Godzilla Raids Again for getting me started in the Godzilla franchise. And if I'm not mistaken, it was part of the lineup for, I think it was TNT's Monster Vision like 94 or something like that. Godzillathon, whatever. I can find the old, I could probably look it up on YouTube and find the old TV commercial for it. But yeah, if any of your listeners out there remember that marathon back, I think it was New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. That's really how I got exposed to Godzilla and how I got exposed to this movie, because it literally was the first movie that I ever watched with technically Godzilla in it. In fact, one of my old videotapes, because my parents were fantastic people and would record for me anytime they knew a Godzilla movie was going to come on television, they would record a copy. And my very first copy of Godzilla Raids Again the tape started with the scene where they're showing the rampage from 1964 in the video clip inside the boardroom.
You mean 1954?
1954. What did I say? 1950.
You said 1964. Apparently, Godzilla can time travel.
Yes, Godzilla. Well, I mean, there is Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, which is the greatest Heisei film of all time. But we're not here to talk about that.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, that's wow. Anyway,
we're not here to talk about it.
Just be glad it was me who caught it and not Jimmy. I beat him to it. Jimmy and I have been at this for so long now that now I know when he's about to hit that button. So nope, not this time, Jimmy.
Yeah. So that's sort of the brief story of how I found and discovered this movie. And, I just liked giant monsters and Godzilla, and, what I didn't know was Godzilla at the time, at least. I just like dinosaur movies in general because I was exposed to Harryhausen and Power Rangers before I was ever exposed to Godzilla. And then once I found Godzilla, I was just like, man, this is where it's at. Like who are these other monsters? Like, who's that king something or other? The giant ape. Who is that guy? Like, no one cares about that guy. Give me the giant fire breathing lizard.
That's a good point, Jimmy. We might want to keep you away from Kong's turf for a while after that statement.
No, I'd still like to go see Kong. Like, after I leave, I always ask Jimmy if he'll take me over to the compound where Kong hangs out, but Jimmy never seems to have the time to take me. He's always off to some. I'm thinking he's probably, honestly, just between us, I think Jimmy's just trying to hit the sauce, like after these episodes,
After recent events, I don't blame him. Anyway, since you are the guest and it's your first Godzilla film, would you like to give us the plot breakdown? Because I do try to give a little plot breakdown for episodes like this where I'm not doing the entertaining info dump.
Yeah, so the plot breakdown is basically Laurel and Hardy are fighter pilots, and they crash land on an island that happens to have Godzilla and Anguirus on it. They'd see Godzilla and Anguirus fighting. Godzilla and Anguirus falls into the sea, and then they go back to Osaka, where their love triangle with this other chick picks up some steam, and then Godzilla shows up and wrecks some and then
where's Jet? Is Jet in the house?
And then Anguirus shows up and wrecks some more, and then Godzilla kills Anguirus, and then they go and follow Godzilla to an iceberg, and they ram the Titanic into it, burying him beneath the iceberg, and where he will sleep until 1962, and he fights King Kong and effectively beats King Kong, and King Kong just kind of swims away because he's scared of Godzilla, and so Godzilla is the hero in that movie, and no one can tell me otherwise.
Yes, you are hereby dubbed Stanzilla.
I am, because I stan Godzilla. I do. I stan Godzilla. I know there's like Kong fans out there, and I'm not trying to judge all the Kong fans out there, but how can you like a damn dirty ape over this magnificent fire-breathing beast that I currently see out the window? What in the hell is he doing? Like, what is he eating? Anyway, whatever. I'm not.
As he occasionally, pokes his head over here, because apparently, Jimmy, are you still broadcasting the show out on the loudspeakers to the island for the kaiju? Of course you are. But so sometimes he comes in and checks on us.
Okay. I mean, he's just kind of I don't know what he's doing. He's just kind of hanging out there. Like, he looks like he's doing a little dance or something. I don't know what's going on. It's crazy. This place is crazy.
Yeah, it is. Okay, Jet, you go manage that for a little while. Yeah, and
Jet, you might want to stick around
and make sure you bleep Michael.
I was gonna say you might want to stick around just in case I drop some other bombs on the show, just because I just think it's fun that Nate has to edit those out.
No, he's the dump button. So anyway, that actually was not too far off, I have to say.
What, the Laurel and Hardy part, or the
whole thing? That was actually weirdly accurate, I have to say. I know you're a little bit more partial to the dubbed version. We watched the Japanese version for today's broadcast, although I did watch both in anticipation of your visit. And I'm going to say, even going by the Japanese version, it's okay.
It's because you're an anti-dub elitist, Nathan.
No, I'm saying the Japanese version is okay.
I mean,
the dub's got issues, but they're kind of funny, to be honest.
They're both fantastic movies, but you need to just admit that you're an anti-dub elitist.
Oh, really? Anti-dub elitist, am I? I grew up on those dubs just as much as you did, sir.
I don't know. I question your authority when it comes to these films sometimes.
Oh. Have fun with that.
Do we really need to talk about the Gamera trilogy right now?
No, you don't. That is a kaiju-sized can of worms that you don't want to open unless your name is Paul Atreides. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Okay. All right. Well, I will say this. I'm a little bit jealous of Kim that she got to talk about Gamera 3 when I explicitly asked you for months to talk about Gamera 3. I see where your allegiance lies. It's fine.
You're welcome. Anyway, so getting back to Godzilla Raids Again, this actually, it's funny that you bring up King Kong, because this actually has a lot of parallels with Kong, where, Godzilla 54 and King Kong were these massive kind of surprise hits. And then the studio said, hey, this is making money. Crank out a sequel. And then within 6 months, there was a sequel. In Kong's case, it was Son of Kong. Listen to episode 4 of MIFV to learn more about that film. And this is basically the same thing. Within 6 months, this movie was released to cash in on the success of Godzilla. And you can tell. It feels a bit rushed at points. Especially at the beginning, there's a lot of just filler. It's just lots of sequences with no dialogue and hardly any music at points too, which is kind of weird because they have Masaru Sato composing for this movie. And Sato did several other Godzilla films in the Showa era, and his scores are fantastic. In fact, one of his scores I know is one of your favorites, that being his score for Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 74. So
I hate that score.
Yeah, you're a liar is what you are.
No, you're right. I love Mechagodzilla. It's probably my favorite score aside from, actually, I really am partial to Godzilla vs. the score from Godzilla vs. Megalon, because I think that's a fun score.
Which I think was also Sato.
And Godzilla, well, this is Ishiro Honda, but
excuse me. Megalon was not Sato. Sorry, retracting that.
Well, I'm primarily I'm not Ishiro Honda, but a Fukabe score. I'm primarily a Fukabe stan when it comes to Godzilla scores, such as Godzilla or Mothra versus Godzilla from '64, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. But man, there's just something about that Mechagodzilla score that it's just a lot of fun.
But the story in this is also, it's a little bit recycled from the first movie, but it's also fairly different. And one thing you did get wrong, I would say, in your plot synopsis is that there isn't a love triangle in this. That is a different girl. That's just Yogi Kobayashi asking for girl advice.
Whoops.
So there's a lot of similarities, and some of the commentators that I looked at talking about this film actually made the argument that considering that most of the creative team that worked on this was completely different from the original movie, they made the argument that this is probably how Godzilla 54 would have turned out had it not had people like Honda and and everyone else who worked on it to elevate the movie. Because this one it's a little bit more by the numbers. There isn't quite as much gravity in this. It has a few scenes where the gravity is very thick, and I really like it. And
it has some really good cinematography too.
Yeah, but it was directed by Motoyoshi Oda, who did you notice in the credits that, in the dub version his name gets misspelled?
A lot of people's names get misspelled.
Oh, his was horribly misspelled. It's they spelled his name ODQ. Odkwa. But he was kind of a B-list talent at Toho. His Stuart Galbraith described his style as "get it done by Tuesday." He was a quantity over quality sort of guy. He was directing 5 movies a year on average. However, the funny thing is he didn't direct too much longer after this movie. This was 1955, and the last movie he directed was 1958, and then he died in 1973. But like I said, it was meant to be this cash grab sequel, so they went and got the guy who was known for getting stuff done quick. So
right, and I did watch the Japanese version as well. I watched both versions. I watched the Japanese version first because I don't watch that one that often because I'm so partial to the dub, and then I watched the dub but with commentary.
I did that as well.
Yeah, so I watched the dub with commentary, and I thought that commentary. I think it was Steve Rifle, Ed Gotocheski, and I cannot.
It's billed as Steve Rifle and Friends.
Right. Yeah, it's that, but I cannot remember the third gentleman's name. He told a very interesting story about going to see the Godzilla and Anguirus suits because they told a really interesting story about how there was actually supposed to be extra footage shot for this movie for the American version, but it never happened.
Yeah, I looked into that thanks to John LeMay's books. He talks about this in several of them. There was supposed to be called The Volcano Monsters. It's actually something I talk about a little bit more with Chris Cook when I did a Godzilla Unmade episode with him on One Cross Radio. The Volcano Monsters was what they were originally going to do with this movie before they decided to just dub it. So they were basically going to pull the reverse of King of the Monsters 56, where they just took the monster footage and just edited that in with a whole new set of characters and a new story and everything. And they did get Toho to send them the suits that they used in the movie because they were going to film at least a little bit more monster footage to use in the film. It ended up falling through, and they just went ahead with dubbing the thing. But it was done by the same TV studio that eventually gave that treatment to Varan.
Which is kind of a shame because I feel like the American version, although I'm nostalgic for it, does feel like just every run-of-the-mill 1950s monster movie with the focus on American ingenuity and military power and the nuclear scare, all that stuff. Like there was a big focus on American militarism. I hope that's the right word I'm using. At least specifically in the American version, but the Japanese version that we both watched, I always forget how quiet that movie is.
It is, which is one of the things that's starkly different with the dub version. The dub version doesn't know when to shut up.
Yeah, between the voiceover and the constant score, the constant recycled stock music score.
Yeah, from Kronos and the Deer Slayer, and it's being narrated by Key Luke. I thought for years it was George Takei. It's not George Takei, it's Key Luke. But George Takei is in the movie. George Takei is dubbing voices in the movie. It was one of his first roles.
He plays several voices in the movie. In fact, I think if you go back and watch the dub, he is the military general barking out orders as they're setting the barrels out to try to capture Godzilla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can hear him. But, oh my gosh, the dub. We'll talk about the dub a little bit later, but yeah, it's weird. I know some people think that King of the Monsters is a bastardization of Godzilla 54, and I can kind of understand it, but I feel like, despite the fact that some of the same producers worked on the dub version for this, I feel like Gigantis is far more disrespectful than the other one, and they did less to it in terms of re-editing the footage. Oh, man. But barring that, what's interesting about this movie is that it's, in some ways, like I said, it's a little bit of a reversal of Godzilla 54. This one's unique in that the characters in this are just working class, ordinary people.
Yeah, I mean, except for two of our lead characters, they seem a little bit wealthier than...
Oh, yeah, they're the girl.
The girl
who's engaged to... his name is escaping me subtly, but he's engaged to our main character. Yeah, she comes from a wealthy family, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
the rest of the cast,
but she has just a run-of-the-mill dispatcher job, so she's a working class person, despite probably coming from a well-to-do family.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right. This movie does have some, are working for the lack of a better term, working class heroes, because in every other Godzilla film, primarily the human characters, the human protagonists are, members of the military or members of government or some high corporate job, maybe like a corporate CEO or something of that nature. It's rare that we get kind of this working class hero cast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The way with some of the commentary that I looked up for this said if Godzilla 54 was an allegory for the war, although there's some shades of the war in this film for sure, just not nearly as much as Godzilla 54, then this is an allegory for Japan's optimistic post-war rebuilding. Hence why the characters in this are weirdly cheery. They're like Godzilla trashes Osaka and destroys the cannery, and they're just like, okay, that was bad, but it's
because
forward.
There's a lot of footage. There's a lot of footage in the Japanese version. It's kept in the American version as well, but there's a lot of footage in the Japanese version that shows like bright city lights and what appears to be like economic prosperity. Basically it's kind of giving this picture, that Japan is seemingly back on its feet, whereas in the dub it opens up with this what I would imagine, from a Westerner's perspective, what the West thought of Japan as just being kind of, backward rice farmers or something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of exoticized. It was exoticizing the Japan, but also kind of presenting it in a bit of a stereotypical light as well. So it's kind of weird. But yeah, definitely indicative of the times. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. And, another thing that's interesting about this, we talked about there is a romantic subplot in this because our main character is engaged, just like we had stuff like that in the original. But this one is different in that it's kind of also showing, Japan being modernized. I talked about in the Godzilla 54 episode about how that film was showing Japan in a bit of a cultural transition, going from the old ways of arranged marriage to the more modern Western concept of dating. And in this one, that's taken a step further, and we have our hero, the survey pilot, and his dispatcher girlfriend, who are just flat out flirting over the radio and gossiping and
right.
It's very westernized.
Very, very, yeah. And it's like I think I was listening to the commentary, and they mentioned that it is sort of a trope of 1950s monster movies to have some sort of nightclub scene. And I think you see this a lot in the Japanese monster movies as well. And most famously, War of the Gargantuas. But it seems like in these earlier films, there are a lot of like nightclub scenes that feel very Western.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's showing the continued modernization and westernization of Japan. It's almost like if Japan was in transition to Godzilla 54, this is showing Japan completing that transition in one form or another, at least when it came to that.
Well, it also helps that this is Osaka and not Tokyo.
Yeah. So that's another thing that's different, which is also, in a weird way, even though this was made before King of the Monsters 56, it's kind of a prophetic fulfillment of something that Steve Martin said in King of the Monsters 56, which is that he said, hey, today it was Tokyo, tomorrow it might be Osaka. Well, guess what? He ended up being right. So, we're talking about this as a sequel. Now, the show series is known for having a loose continuity. Well, the interesting thing about this is that there's actually some fairly close ties to the first movie, which, if you're used to the looser continuity of the 60s and 70s films, this one is a little bit surprising in that regard. Because we actually have Dr. Yamane with Takashi Shimura. He's in this movie. Now, it's basically a glorified cameo, but he's in the movie. He's the only character who comes back, but he's in the movie. And Dr. Yamane said at the end of that movie, it's like, hey, there might be another Godzilla, and he ended up being right. So he's basically being proven right in this.
Yeah, and we're basically, it basically implies that this is the Godzilla that would take us all the way through Destroya.
Mm-hmm. Or at the very least through the rest of the Showa era.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, because it's not the same Godzilla. They say, it's a member of the same species. And then in the Japanese version, he says, here, I need to illustrate something too, because he shows up in this meeting where they're all like, oh my gosh, more kaiju. And so he shows them footage from the original movie that's supposed to be when Godzilla attacked Tokyo. And in the Japanese version, it's completely silent. So you're seeing clips of the first movie with no sound or music, and it's kind of eerie, to be honest.
It is. It is very eerie, and I think I like this part more than the dubbed version, where you get the extra footage of. Now, don't get me. I love the dub version because of its charm. It's like this is one of the more charming aspects of the dub version. The added footage of what appears to be, and I think Steve Reifel pointed this out. What appears to be footage from educational videos from children.
Yeah, I think someone has figured out what it's from, but I didn't come across it when I was looking at my research. That's something for you to add to your follow-up blog, Jimmy. Because I think they figured out where it's from.
Yeah, I know the footage of the guys in the rubber dinosaur suits. That's from like something planet or something. What I don't know. It was like something planet. From. Yeah.
The rest of it,
they were a little bit unsure.
Yeah, and Rifle referred to it. It's actually one of the best jokes. He tries to be pretty funny in that commentary, but this was probably my favorite joke in the whole thing, where he said that it was a documentary on unintelligent design.
That was pretty funny. In fact, no offense to Steve, but like some of his commentary sometimes comes off as really dry. I think that I think that little joke, kind of that dry humor joke, it did make me chuckle as well. I actually enjoy the Ed Godacheski commentaries usually, typically more, because I think Ed has a little bit more of a livelier tone to his voice when he talks about these films.
Yeah, but then there's talk about Dr. Serizawa and the Oxygen Destroyer, and they're like, well, we can't use the Oxygen Destroyer again because we only have one and the inventor is dead. And then we have this interesting statement that I'm like, I wonder if anyone has tried testing this on the island. But apparently Godzilla doesn't like bright lights because it reminds him of the H-bomb test that mutated him or woke him up or something. So I guess Godzilla has PTSD? Atomic PTSD?
Maybe he has. For as much as the big guy's been through, I would have PTSD out
the. Where's Jet? I totally understand it, and it's one of the subtle restatements of the anti-nuclear theme from the original movie.
Yeah,
but the anti-nuclear stuff is not nearly as big of a deal in this. This movie is
even in the Japanese cut, it's even not made a huge deal of.
Yeah, it's more focused on other things, which is totally fine. You can't catch that lightning in a bottle again. But something that even though I would say that this is it's a middling entry in the Godzilla series, but there's a couple of things that's very important for it. Mm-hmm. And that is probably its biggest contribution. Well, two things. It has two major contributions, and they're related. One is the introduction of a boy, Anguirus, and Gyaos.
Killer of the living.
Killer of the living. Oh, my God. That sounds like a blockbuster of a bestseller, doesn't it? Ankylosaurus, Killer of the living.
Yes. Yes.
I want that movie now. I really want that movie. It sounds like a dinosaur slasher movie.
I literally thought for many, many years while I was young and stupid, I literally thought that Anguirus...
You're still one of those, but...
Yes, thank you. I do. I am pretty young. But this movie corrupted my brain to actually think that Anguirus was just the four-legged Godzilla, or Godzilla was a two-legged Anguirus. You know, this movie damaged my psyche that much growing up as a child. You know, it wasn't but many, many years later that I found out it wasn't true.
It's funny that you bring up strange facts about Anguirus. Something that I remember you and me and Travis and all that, we saw this on Twitter and we're like, really? No, there's no way. There's no way. All the wikis are wrong. And then I watched this movie and I'm like, oh, it is in the movies and not in some extra, supplementary
about
material.
Anguirus having three brains or something like that.
Yeah, it's actually stated outright in the movie,
although
it was stated by a Polish scientist in a paper.
I mean, okay. All right, whatever. But it's canon. So
yeah,
Anguirus
and it's not, like I said, it's not supplementary material. It is text. I had just forgotten about that.
Did you think it was, just out of curiosity, did you think it was weird that even in the Japanese version they were reading in Japanese out of an American dinosaur textbook? Did anybody else think that was weird?
Well, I mean, don't you know that the most important dinosaur information is in English language children's textbooks? That's just how this works.
Honestly, after watching this movie this time around, I tried to find that book on eBay and I cannot find
it. Well, somebody found one from a different movie.
from the movie that comes after this one. Yeah, our friend Danny found the one. He found the one that is referenced in King Kong versus Godzilla, the American version, which, you can still find that one. I want the one from this movie.
Good luck with that. If you find it, let me know. I might have to get it for the Sekizawa Library here on the island. But the other big contribution that this makes to the franchise, so besides fan favorite Anguirus, this is, I wouldn't say it's not the first of its kind, but it's the first in the Godzilla franchise, kaiju fights.
Yep.
This is the first kaiju fight, and you can tell it's the first.
Well, it was a crew of interns or like fresh...
It was of rookie cameramen who were working with Tsuburaya, and they were using 3 cameras, and one of them was set to the wrong speed. 2 were set to record in 72 frames per second, and then another one guy accidentally set it to 18 frames a second, hence why... When you see the fight, when they're editing all the footage together, they go from being big, slow, and lumbering, like we all know those kaiju, to being 5-year-olds on caffeine and sugar. I was like, where did that sugar buzz come, guys?
Well, it's like, obviously Red Bull gives Godzilla wings, or at least this is Godzilla.
Only Shin Godzilla might have wings, but
don't get me started on Shin Godzilla. But yeah, this is Godzilla on Red Bull.
Yeah, he gave it to Anguirus too. Seriously. Yeah. And apparently they recorded it that way. Tsuburaya looked at the footage and he'd say, hey, it still looks pretty good. And we don't know if he actually meant it or if he was just trying to cover for the poor cameraman.
Well, he was probably trying not to get the poor cameraman fired. And honestly, probably for the sake of time, it's like he knew that he couldn't go back and refilm or didn't have time to. He's like, okay, let's
They were on a tight time crunch. Yeah, for sure.
But let's just use it.
Yeah. And like I said, that's the thing. The effects in this movie, especially compared to Godzilla 54,
not terrible.
They're not terrible, but they're really uneven. Sometimes they're really good, and other times they're not.
Yeah, it's like, there's a lot of uses of hand puppets in this movie.
Oh my gosh, so many hand puppets.
There's so many hand puppets. It's like Elmo breathes fire, or Elmo... I'm sorry. Elmo breathes atomic water mist is what was actually kind of going on. It's like,
and I love that Anguirus is just mildly irritated by. He's like,
quit that, stop. It's like my cat. Whenever I have to spray my cat because he won't do what I tell him to do. He won't get off the counter, so I spray him with a water bottle.
So are you saying Anguirus is more of a cat or a dog?
I don't know. He's a good boy, so I'm gonna assume he's a dog, but he has
I guess it depends, because apparently you exude the same kind of energy. You should go meet Anguirus, and he'll probably be like, "I like you. You give me the same energy."
I'd like to scratch Anguirus under his chin. Maybe Jimmy, can you get that? Can you make that an arrangement? Can we do that on the tour today? Can I visit Anguirus and scratch his under his little kaiju chin? I mean, I'm not terribly worried about radiation poisoning, but sure. Like, if you need me to put
I don't think he's radioactive.
Well, I mean, but you never know what kind of weird diseases these kaiju have.
This is true. We did have to deal with some kaiju COVID last year.
Yeah, I heard about that, about some of the kaiju getting sick. And apparently, really quickly, do you guys have the aviary shut down? Has that whole thing been resolved?
Oh, that's been taken care of.
Okay,
Let me tell you,
right,
that's been taken care of. There, yeah. Don't worry about it.
I don't want to have to become a consumed individual myself.
No, you don't. No. But I don't think you have to worry about Kaiju COVID either. That was the Redosaurus. We call him Red. He was the one that he was patient zero with that, and that's been taken care of.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. It makes sense because, if I'm not mistaken, the Redosaurus did give off that weird, like, kind of disease.
Yeah. So he's been quarantined and he's been treated. He's fine. Everything's fine now. Yes.
Sure. Okay.
How are you?
But anyway, hand puppets. Hand puppets.
Yeah.
Radioactive
so
Elmo.
Hand puppets.
Radioactive Elmo.
There's a hype meme.
Hi there, Anguirus.
Check out my radioactive morning breath.
But so many hand puppets, and I get it. Like, that's part of the charm of this movie, though. I just wish that the hand puppets were a little bit more consistent with the actual design of the kaiju.
Well, they redesigned Godzilla a bit in this. The suit was slimmed down, so Nakajima could move around a heck of a lot better, and especially with the fight scenes. And they redesigned the head, and from some angles, Godzilla's head looks fine, but then from others, are just like, oh no.
Well,
he's got big ol' ugly teeth, which I'm sure WHG3 knows all about.
That's a low blow, man. He can't help it. He can't help that.
Well, British stereotypes and all of that, they exist for a reason. But so it looks kind of odd, to be honest, from certain angles. It's mostly the same design as 54, but it still looks a little strange.
This Godzilla is a lot more slimmed down. The dorsal plates are essentially the same, but they're shaped a little bit more weird, random, jaggedly, I guess. They're honestly not as uniform even as 1954. The suit, as far as the head goes, he has this extremely long neck, which I don't remember 54 ever having. Even any Godzilla, for that matter, having an extremely long neck outside of maybe 68. He looks fine from certain angles, mainly the side angle and maybe 3/4 angle, but straight away he looks like your goofy inbred cousin.
Well, you do live perilously close to Kentucky, so you would know.
I do. Yes, you're right. Sorry, our friends in Kentucky. I'm so sorry, but
hey, according to my analytics, this show is big in Arkansas, so I think I'm fine.
Oh yeah, you definitely got some goofy inbred cousins down in Arkansas.
But yeah, but like I said, first kaiju fight in this, and wow. it's brutal. If you're used to basically the kaiju wrestling that you get later, oh my gosh.
Right. It's not even it's like, I think even Steve pointed this out in it was either Steve or Ed that pointed this out in the commentary, that in later Godzilla fights, there's usually like some very kind of mammalian humanistic strategy involved with Godzilla and the other kaiju. But it's just raw, animalistic, and extremely just violent energy. This is like, I know Gigan gets a lot of recognition for being the first film to see Godzilla bleed, but my God, like this fight is brutal. Like, especially the end shot where, Godzilla grabs Anguirus by the neck, and you can just see it's in black and white, but you can still tell that there's supposed to be blood coming out of Anguirus's neck.
And then he sets him on fire. And
he sets him on fire, which I have to ask, why didn't Godzilla just use his atomic breath the whole time? Because I know that in the Heisei era, it just becomes light.
He tried, remember? It was just a mildly irritating mist. And then when Anguirus was mostly dead, then he was flammable. I don't understand how that works.
Gotcha. So basically, it was just like a kaiju loogie or kaiju spittle that never materialized into atomic breath. Gotcha. Okay.
I guess. Apparently, it's got to be a little bit farther away.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I'll talk to the resident kaijuologist and find out how all that works. I'm sure
I would really like to know what kind of weird pseudoscience they come up with to explain that one.
I would love to. The sad thing is they probably consult with fans about it, which not the most scientific way of figuring these things out, but who am I to question the experts, right?
I mean, I question you all the time.
Yeah, which is probably a good thing. But I mentioned before that there are some shades, despite the fact that this is that more optimistic view of post-war Japan. There are some shades of the war in this.
There are.
Yeah. Rifle talked about in his commentary about how our two leads, Kobayashi and his buddy, running off, because if I remember correctly, I think they mentioned in passing that they do have some war experience. So they served during World War II, and now they're survey pilots. So they found good things to do in civilian life post-war, which is good. So once all the kaiju are running amok and doing things, they're quick to just run off and help their boss try to keep the cannery, their workplace, safe, and they're leaving the women behind. And Rifle likened that to Japanese soldiers obeying their commander, and then the one woman that we see, I think it's Hidemi. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, Jimmy. And she's left behind, and she's worrying about her fiance the whole time. She's supposed to be representative of the women who were left behind during the war, and we're always worried. So there's that. And then also the fact that they're doing blackouts because they figure out Godzilla is angered by light, so they start doing blackouts. That's a wartime thing. Whole citywide blackouts so that bombers couldn't figure out where their targets were. So there's some wartime experience and imagery that's being used there. And, it was done in America and in London as well. So it wasn't just Japan.
Right. Yeah, because this is the time before like infrared and night vision, came into play. You can't, like now, military planes and jets and fighter jets they come equipped with, night vision technology. This, you just kind of had to guess. You had to know kind of where your targets are just by, using your own eyeballs. So, it's not as, like, this movie does have some shades of the war in it. It's not as explicit though as in 54. And I cannot remember exactly what Rifle or Ed said during the commentary. Basically it was how 1954 was an allegory for the bomb. Raids Again is an allegory for something else what he said is escaping me right now.
Yeah,
maybe
I know that he said that a lot of people liken Godzilla 54 to being like Hiroshima, and this movie is Nagasaki. Two big historical events, but people remember Hiroshima more than Nagasaki because Nagasaki was second and Hiroshima was first. So this is the Nagasaki, as he put it, of the Godzilla franchise. It's important and it happened, but nobody talks about it nearly as much because it wasn't first.
Right. Well, and I have to ask, just from a fan's perspective, why do people hate this movie so much?
I don't think it's that it's hated. I think it's just overshadowed.
Well, no, I have talked to fans that will put this on their I hate this so much list. Right there with, of course, Godzilla's Revenge, aka All Monsters Attack, but that film is getting a reevaluation by some people in the fan base. So why not Raids Again? Why can't Raids Again be given the same treatment?
I think it's partly through ignorance because it was widely unavailable for a long time, and I also think it's also because the dub version soured it for a lot of people. Because the dub version does it no favors.
Well, the dub version does it no favors because the dub version has this notorious little tick about it where it states the obvious.
Yeah.
But in the one place that it should have been more explanatory, like when they're on the island getting ready to trap Godzilla, it would have been nice to have the commentary to explain what the military was actually doing. That would have been appropriate. Like the one time the narrator was silent was the part where maybe it would have been actually useful.
Possibly. Although what's interesting is, since you're bringing that up, and then I'm going to backtrack to one more thing. I want to say one more thing about the war imagery. Sure. Is that this movie is arguably the closest time we ever have a purely military solution that solves the problem in a Japanese.
Oh yeah, because there's no assist from another monster. There's no like pseudo-science-y, weird thing that they do to stop Godzilla. It's just a strictly military solution.
I would say it's not strictly military. Now, they didn't figure it out until the accidental kamikaze by Kobayashi.
Yeah,
and then they're like, oh, wait, that's what we can do, which basically involved them not using their weapons on Godzilla. It involved them using the environment. So the argument could be made that it wasn't strictly military. It was the military using the environment to their advantage. It's not like Godzilla 98 where it's just shoot him enough and he dies. So,
I mean, probably. Yeah. It's like, but we don't talk about Godzilla 98 all that much. I like that movie too, but I like this one more.
As you should. But
see, I'm not a complete monster.
No, you're only 90%.
Okay, I'll take it.
But anyway, talking about the wartime imagery, there is one scene that I would dare say it actually manages to... It's the one scene that I feel like it rises up to Godzilla 54 levels, which is that scene with the girl in her house, and she's far away from Osaka, but she sees Osaka in the distance. It's at night, and Osaka's on fire because the kaiju are running around. And the scene is silent. There's not even any music. You just hear a little bit of sound effects. And she's just looking off. And this actress is communicating purely by facial expressions. And you can see the worry on her face because she's thinking, my friend and my fiance are both over there right now. And I don't know if they're okay.
Well, it's also tragic because, she's safe, but she's watching all of this chaos and tragedy unfolding. She essentially has a front row seat to the chaos, and there's nothing she can do about it.
Yeah, and it's way off in the distance too. So it's really far away. So she really can't tell exactly what's going on. So I thought that was actually a very effective scene. So kudos to the filmmakers for that one. I really appreciated that one. And then you have stuff like the random subplot that interrupts everything with the escaped prisoners. and the worst Keystone cops ever. Who in their right mind puts an actual guard in the back of a paddy wagon with a gun? He's grossly outnumbered with a bunch of violent criminals. What do you expect to happen?
A bunch of violent criminals that I'll add were not even in handcuffs.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing was just, it's some of the worst policing I've ever seen. It's just, you're just asking for trouble at that point. Some say that even though it kind of comes out of nowhere, feels like padding. I've heard some people argue that it's an illustration of the so-called butterfly effect, because it's just this long series of unrelated things that end up tied together in a weird way, because they have nothing to do with the kaiju whatsoever. They just show up, and then the kaiju attack happens, and they take advantage of it so they can take out the cops and get out of the thing and then run away from the cops. But then they end up getting killed by the kaiju while they're running around doing stuff, because they try to hide in a subway. And by the way, the effects in that subway sequence were actually really good.
They were.
Yeah, when the subway gets flooded while Godzilla and Anguirus are fighting. So it was just this long series of events that's not really connected, but they end up kind of weirdly. There's so many coincidences that have to happen to make this story work. It's kind of ridiculous. Like, everybody is just conveniently where they need to be to make stuff happen. But another thing that's not really coincidental, because good grief, do they foreshadow this hard. And that is Kobayashi's death. It's just, there was a joke. Jimmy and Joe and I made this joke during episode 50 when we were stuck in space watching the war in space, and we made this joke. It was like, don't say that, you'll die by trope. And we get it in this. Kobayashi didn't read the script, and he didn't realize if I show somebody a picture of my sweetheart, I'm going to die.
I mean, yeah, it's every science fiction-y horror movie trope that happens to have a
war
love
movies
in it.
Happens in war movies too.
Happens in war movies all the time. So yeah, I mean, they didn't hide it. They foreshadowed it pretty hard. There's not much else I can say. There's not much I can say.
It's in an interesting scene, because I've joked about it before, where Kobayashi just goes in there and he's talking to Hidemi, and he's just like, what do girls want? Because there's a girl he likes and he doesn't know what to do, and everyone is jokingly calling him Mr. Groom the whole movie. That must be really annoying. With your engaged friend and all your buddies are all calling you Mr. Groom, and you don't even have a girlfriend. And it's just like, oh my gosh, poor guy. They even make this joke about how, Confucius says a long engagement is joy. And I'm sorry, he's wrong. I've known people who've been engaged for a long time, and it was not fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I was in a long engagement one time, and it just wasn't fun. It's just like, it's to a point there comes, it's like, okay, let's just get this over with.
Yeah. So I kind of feel sorry for him, but he's asking for girl advice, and she's like, they want handbags. I'm like, wow, we truly have westernized at this point.
A long way. We have come such a long way.
Apparently, yeah. So apparently, there you go, fellas. Elijah, if you need help finding a little lady gatekeeper for yourself, here's the secret: buy her a purse.
Purses. Okay, so here's the secret to a woman's heart: purses, jewelry, and people are going to hate me for this, cookware.
Yes. Oh, before we wrap some things up with this part of the discussion, I should have mentioned this. We were talking about the volcano monsters, and if I don't mention this, your fellow MIFV Max member will not let me hear the end of it. But you know who was the brains behind that, trying to get it made? Ib Melchior.
What? Who?
Ib Melchior. And I have to bring that up because he's the writer-director for Reptilicus.
Oh, my.
There you go, Damon. Because apparently a lot of the ideas that he had for the volcano monsters ended up in Reptilicus.
Okay.
And nobody knows what happened to those suits that got sent over to the States for them to use.
Well, there's speculation they got stolen.
One of them got stolen, but they did actually unearth a photograph where the Godzilla suit was posing with the Phantom of the Opera.
Interesting.
Yes. Huh. The Phantom of the Opera is here with Godzilla.
Oh, wow. That was unexpected. Jimmy, has Nate been drinking?
Slander.
Slander. I thought so. Tell me this, Jimmy. Is he an apple teeny kind of guy? Because that's what he seems like. He's a little. Oh, okay. All right. So he is definitely a rum and coke kind of person. Okay. I mean, he dances and he's a little light on his feet, so I just assumed he was more of an apple teeny kind of guy.
No, that was my grandmother's favorite drink. How dare you?
Rum and coke or apple teenies?
Rum and coke.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay, so rum and coke. So that's your drink of choice is rum and coke.
Yes, in honor of my grandmother. So shut your big fat yapper. Anyway, and just a fun little fact, Gigantis the fire monster was released on double bill with Teenagers from Outer Space.
Yeah.
Which I've seen on MST3K.
Okay. I haven't seen that episode, but I've seen
also
Teenagers from Outer
Space. Shriedman, who was one of the producers on this movie. You talked about how yours this movie confused you. Well, they said that a lot of people thought that they changed the name because they thought the name Godzilla was copyrighted and they couldn't use it. That wasn't the case at all. Producer Shriedman actually said that they changed it to Gigantis so it wouldn't be confused with Godzilla. Except that's what it is.
But it is Godzilla.
Yeah, that's that's a tiny bit confusing. Yeah.
So after this movie, the reason Godzilla went on a long hiatus is because Toho focused on more of its science fiction.
Yep, Mysterians, Rodan, they did other Kaiju, Mothra, Battle in Outer Space.
Yeah. They literally put Godzilla on ice for a little while after this movie.
Indeed. And then he made one heck of a comeback. This is noteworthy because it's the only other Godzilla film that's in black and white. So there's only two in existence, and this is the other one. So, which might be a turnoff to some people as well, because some people are weirdly anti-black and white movie. I don't understand what's wrong with you people.
I will admit, I saw someone recolor Shin Godzilla to black and white, and honestly, it made it a better movie.
Interesting. I'll have to look that up sometimes. But we've talked a lot about the differences between this and what happens to the poor thing in the dub. But I'll rattle off a few more that we haven't quite talked about. So we talked about the prologue, and it tries really hard to eliminate those connections to the first movie, which we've talked about already. It's got a lot of that narration never shuts up, and it just describes everything that's going on. It's so completely unneeded. Weirdly enough, it shuts up during that scene I talked about with the girl. Mm-hmm. It's the one place it shuts up. So it's like even the people working on the dub for this are like, you know what? This is the one part where we need to shut up. We talked about people working on the dub. So I made the joke earlier about Yogi Kobayashi. That's because Kobayashi was dubbed by Dawes Butler, who is best known for voicing Yogi Bear. And there are points where I keep waiting for Kobayashi to be like, hey, Godzilla, you want a picnic basket? Hey, Anguirus, you want a picnic basket? And I call you boo-boo.
No, I will not give you a pic. I do not want a picnic basket, Yogi.
And then sometimes they overdub Godzilla's voice. Like, this is the one movie where Godzilla is dubbed.
Yeah, it's like someone in the sound edit. It's like someone in the sound room, the editor's booth said, they're both the same monster, right? So they should sound the same.
Yeah. So he gets dubbed with Anguirus' voice, which is just weird. Mm-hmm. The music makes things unnecessarily comical. I mean, it's not like this movie was the gravest of movies compared to Godzilla 54, but it wasn't a comedy either. It's just weird. And Gigantis just sounds about as B movie as you can get. And then, the greatest offense we've already talked about was inserting the documentary on unintelligent design. And the tone's all over the place. But we have to talk about the most infamous addition in the dub. What I'm talking about.
What could it be? Whatever could it be, Marchand?
I don't know, but I'm surprised it's something I haven't heard my friend Raymund say. But banana oil. I don't know. I don't have to worry about that getting bleeped, even though they basically meant exactly the sort of thing that would get you bleeped on the show. So,
was it the modern equivalent to bullshit?
Yes. Where's Jet? Jet's working overtime with you around. Oh my gosh. But the funny thing is, it was that was a phrase in the 20s and 30s, and even in the 50s they said like that was an outdated phrase by that. Like George Takei told the stories like when they were recording the dub and they got to that part of the script, everybody was laughing. It was like nobody says this anymore.
Well, it was because the dubbers were just trying to find something that matched the lips of the actors and actresses.
Yeah, because he said because in the Japanese the character says bakara, which is, it usually means idiot, which means the guy's calling his fiance an idiot. That's just rude. Although Criterion translated it as nonsense. Oh, like, okay.
How very PC of them.
Yeah, I guess. It's just weird. Although they tried to give that character in the dub version a character arc because he's talking about how he's not very brave, and even Rifle pointed was like, dude, you fly survey planes. How are you doubting your courage? It's goofy.
It's all incredibly goofy.
Yeah, it's goofy, but I will say I'm not one of those people who is going to flip out over a dub, even a bad dub, and be like, how dare you insult this movie and you're ruining the reputation of the franchise. And I get it. That's probably true. People watch the dub version of this movie and they think that's what all Godzilla movies are like and stuff like that. But you know what? I can separate myself from all of that and just be like, this dub is unintentionally funny.
Well, between all the banana oil and corns and, all the things like these dubs, like I don't have a problem with dubs. Like I've had conversations with people about like, oh, how could you like the dub? Well, I'll tell you why I can like the dub, because typically, a full disclosure, if I'm watching a brand new kaiju film that I've never seen before and there's a dub, I'm probably going to watch the dub first to kind of get an idea of what the heck is going on. Then I'll go watch the Japanese version because I'm lazy and don't want to read.
Dubs have their place, that's for sure.
Dubs have their place. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yeah. Some of the best dubs are, of course, the Mechagodzilla dub. That's fantastic. That's a fantastic dub. With Kanuma.
Does it make your mouth water?
Could you beat Godzilla to death? But no, that's a fantastic dub. I think the dub for King Kong versus Godzilla, the film that comes after this, is fantastic. If they would have just left the original Ifukube score in the film, honestly, that would have been the perfect movie.
Well, and no stupid American reporter scenes.
Well, yeah, no stupid American reporters, and leave the Ifukube score in, but just redub everything. It would be perfect. Absolutely perfect. Although, and I know we're not talking about this movie now, but the Shakespeare quote at the beginning of the movie is pretty iconic.
Well, it was iconic before then because it's Shakespeare. Anyway, now we're going to make the very rough transition to talking about what in my previous podcast life, when I talked about this movie, was the Toku topic. I'm just going to read a few of my highlighted notes on that, which is the JSDF.
Sure.
The Japanese Self-Defense Forces, because they play a role in this movie. They have a pretty prominent role in this, but they play a huge role in most kaiju movies, particularly from Japan. Anyway,
I thought it was the Japanese Silly Dancing Force.
Oh, that's a different JSDF.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Sometimes they come and perform on the island, and they're usually only popular with a few of the kids. Yeah. Yeah, some of them like to put on those inflatable Godzilla costumes and do the Shay dance. It's kind of weird.
You're so full of banana oil, Nathan.
Yeah, yes, I am. Which is funny because I'm allergic to bananas. So,
note to self: bring Nate some bananas the next time I come.
Then you're going to be eating them through another orifice. But anyway. So the JSDF. So while Japan's new constitution, we're talking the post-war constitution, required the nation to renounce war, the Cold War, along with some leftist demonstrations, made more conservative leaders reconsider how to protect their nation. Then, with U.S. occupation forces being diverted to the Korean War, Japan formed the National Police Reserve in 1950, which consisted of 75,000 troops armed with light infantry weapons. This was basically a loophole to get around Article 9, which said that they renounce war. So so when the JSDF started, they were a glorified police force because they couldn't have a quote-unquote real military. The Treaty of Mutual Cooperation and Security between the United States and Japan stated that U.S. forces would deal with external threats to Japan, while the Japanese forces dealt with internal threats and natural disasters, which you see throughout all of these movies. So it makes sense that it's the JSDF that is engaging with kaiju as opposed to the alliance with the United States being activated to come deal with it most of the time because it's considered an internal matter. And this is actually brought up in Gamera 2. It's the only kaiju movie I can think of where they actually mention Article 9 by name and talk about how this is an internal matter, so I'm activating the self-defense forces to take care of this.
Truly the best Gamera movie.
So at the time in 1952, they named, it wasn't the self-defense force, it was the National Security Force. And then on July 1st, 1954, just 4 short months before the release of Godzilla, the National Security Force was reorganized into the Japanese Self-Defense Forces, which included ground, maritime, and air forces. And it was all under the command of a guy named General Keizo Hayashi. He was their first chairman. So, Article 9 was interpreted as not denying Japan the right of self-defense. I've been talking about this. So, they worked on creating the SDF with the U.S.'s help. However, anti-military sentiment from the public called the SDF's constitutionality into question well into the 1970s and even the 1980s. So the government was wary of making defense decisions for fear of backlash, which hence why it was kind of a big deal in Gamera 2 when they actually showed the prime minister and he said, I'm activating the self-defense forces to deal with this, which is something that these Godzilla films, they don't even bother with that. They just go off and do stuff until you get to Shin Godzilla, where they don't talk about Article 9 by name, but they show the bureaucratic mess that can hold up military action and how that screwed everything up. So, while Japan typically restricts military spending to less than 1% of their GNP, the JSDF has slowly grown into the 8th largest military budget in the world. In fact, in 2013, the National Council of Defense, run by the LDP, which is a political party in Japan, proposed a full-scale, quote-unquote, rearmament of Japan, calling the restrictions placed on Japan after World War II outdated. The JSDF has kind of become the face of the whole debate about Article 9 in Japan, because it's still going on to this day. Their primary focus is on North Korea and then China. Is anyone surprised?
So fearless leader is a problem over there?
Yes.
Okay.
It's dear leader.
Oh, dear. I am dear leader.
Yes, dear leader. Not fearless leader is dealt is Boris Natosha's boss. Yeah.
Oh, yes, it is very true. Okay,
yes.
Got you.
And as of 2013, Japan now spends 3% of the national budget on defense. It's probably different now. And no surprise, given the U.S. occupation, the JSDF is structured very similarly to the U.S. military. The prime minister is the commander-in-chief with authority running down to a minister of defense.
Okay.
And they're advised by a joint chief of staff that in each of the 3 branches. And and I've mentioned the 3 branches already. So, you have the ground defense force, which is basically the army, the Japan Maritime Force, that's their navy, and the air defense force, so it's their air force. And these include 5 armies, 5 maritime districts, and 3 air defense forces.
Okay.
Japan's defense policy has changed since the occupation. While its constitution forbids war with increasing nuclear threats from North Korea and the threat of cyber terrorism, the JSDF contributes to such things as UN peacekeeping operations as a quote-unquote protective contributor to peace. To that end, it established the National Security Council in December 2013, a forum to regularly discuss security concerns with the Prime Minister. In fact, The Diet passed the UN Peacekeeping Cooperation Law in 1992 that allowed the JSDF to participate in non-combat positions in UN operations. That was a big deal.
Was it Atkins or gluten-free?
Both. Article 83 of the Self-Defense Forces Law in 1954, again the year Godzilla was released, requires the JSDF to respond to calls to aid by prefecture governors for disaster relief, including firefighting earthquakes and reinforcing embankments and levees in case of flooding.
Oh my.
Why do you think they always respond to the kaiju attacks? Because those kaiju are basically walking natural disasters. So they got to evacuate people. Mm-hmm. They got to deal with things like the flooding we saw in this movie. And then 2004 saw a turning point in Japan's history when 600 JSDF ground troops were deployed into Iraq to assist with reconstruction efforts at the behest of the U.S. This was the first time since World War II Japan had made a major troop deployment. It was a controversial decision, dividing public opinion, since the constitutionality of this operation seemed tenuous. The administration of Prime Minister Koizumi, however, made sure the troops were protected by Japanese special forces and the Australian military and prohibited troops from firing on Iraqi insurgents unless fired upon first. Their mission was intended to be purely humanitarian to comply with the Constitution.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, the JSDF has long had recruitment problems. Their forces are dwindling a little bit, unfortunately. Post-war apathy and antipathy toward the military has made most citizens reluctant to join. Most recruits are, quote-unquote, persuaded volunteers, and usually from more rural areas of the country. Retaining personnel has also been a problem, as many recruits are lured away by better-paying civilian jobs. However, with Japan's severe labor shortage, this is a common problem for all industries. So there you go.
That was really interesting, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. It's interesting to know that and then look at how the military is portrayed in these kaiju films. As I've heard some people say that they think of the military portrayal in Godzilla 54 as ambivalent. It's not really positive or negative. Mm-hmm. And then some interpret, particularly the Showa Godzilla films, as kind of being a little bit more negative. I kind of disagree with that. I think it's more just they know that in a situation like this is going to happen. So they have to be there. And also it became part of the trope at that point.
Right. In all honesty, though, and like without fooling around, it is interesting to know that backstory because it does help give a lot more interesting context. Say when you watch these films, because it's easy, especially for us in the West, to compare everything that goes on in these Japanese films to what we're personally familiar with our military and our military operations. So knowing a little bit of the backstory of the JSDF does, it does help create a little bit better context to what we're watching. Mm-hmm. Because they are different.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. And the attitudes toward them are different as well. It's a little bit complicated with how the Constitution is set up over there and the culture that has created, because there is a potent pacifistic streak in Japan, but they've also there's that, but they also have to deal with the reality of they have hostile neighbors. So what do you do at that point? And they don't necessarily just want to be completely dependent on the U.S. to take care of things for them.
Right. I mean, I think that every country has a right to defend themselves, and Japan is no different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I also don't think that anybody has anything to worry about. Even if a bunch of nationalists take over the Japanese government, they just are not in a position to start Imperial Japan Part 2. It's just not happening.
No, they don't have the resources to do that.
They don't. They really don't. But that is a discussion for a whole other day. So unless you've got anything else to bring up, Michael, I've basically run through all of my important notes.
I'm trying to think here if there's anything that's of any importance to bring up before we close out this discussion. Now, I do remember we were talking earlier about how I think it was Eiji Tsuburaya who was a big fan of King Kong.
Yes.
King Kong 33. it was brought up in that documentary, the commentary that both you and I watched, I believe, where they said that in the final scene where Godzilla's fighting the jets, they think that was sort of an homage to when King Kong fought the biplanes in 33.
That wouldn't surprise me at all, knowing how huge a fan of that film that Tsuburaya was.
I mean, the effects in this movie are incredibly impressive. I know this movie has sort of I don't want to say a bad reputation. Like I said, people don't like it for some reason, and I've never really been able to get a straight answer as to why, outside of, oh, Godzilla just looks goofy. Like, okay, so? And the dub sucks. It's like, okay, so? What else makes it bad? Like, can you not go any, like, it's a pretty well written story. The characters are likable. It is the first Godzilla movie we get a monster fight in. So that it literally sets the standard for what we know and love about the franchise. Like, you need to respect this movie more, damn it.
Oh,
Quit filling the ether with all of your banana oil and just get over it.
I have to agree with you there, Jimmy. Michael is getting getting his Lord Gatekeeper on there.
Well, no, it's like I just get tired. Like in the community, it's just like all this gatekeepery bullcrap, and sometimes the people that rail against gatekeeping are some of the worst gatekeepers, and so just allow people to enjoy the things they want to enjoy, and for the reasons they want to enjoy them. And if you like Raids Again, it's one of my favorites because I'm pretty partial to it, because I'm pretty nostalgic about it. Then come over to my side where the grass is greener and the girls are pretty, and over in Paradise City.
Yes, where there's hopefully a heck of a lot less banana oil.
Where there's a lot less banana oil, although I have been known to spill the banana oil from time to time myself.
Yes.
But you know what is not banana oil?
What?
Whatever the next segment we're going to go into.
We're just wrapping things up at this point. Normally, I mean, you've been listening this year. Normally, this would have been the part of the show where I would have to read a memo or a press release or whatnot from the board.
I was going to ask you, is there like a memo you got to read? Because I was in the back of my mind thinking, okay, so we're getting towards the end of the episode. We've probably got another, I don't know, like 10 minutes or so before we have to read a board mandated memo.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Now I did get something. We all got something emailed to us, but I think I'll leave that one to let the board just put that out for themselves. Cause it's like, I just want to see them swallow their pride and put that one out. But wait, are you serious, Jimmy? They just sent one? Really? They just sent you a press release? Goodness gracious. Okay. I am sorry, Michael. Apparently, I need to read this. So send it over, Jimmy. Let me take a look. Oh, no.
What is it? I'm waiting with bated breath.
Oh, no.
Is to see what type of banana oil. What type of banana oil the board is getting ready to spew upon us today?
Oh no! How the mighty have fallen. They're getting desperate now. They are so desperate now to get people to start coming back to this island. And I have to admit, I'm a little torn because I'm like, I want more business so I can keep my job, but oh man.
Well, what is it? Like you keep saying, oh man, oh man, oh man. Like what the hell is it, buddy?
Do you want the headline or the first sentence?
Just give me all of it. I want all of it.
Okay, here you go. I am reading this verbatim, just so you know.
Okay, all right, I'm ready.
The Monsterland Resort will host Clifford the Big Red Dog and his owner Emily Elizabeth Howard beginning December 2nd, 2021 until Christmas Eve. Shall I continue?
Sure.
While the lovable Clifford's status as a, quote, kaiju remains questionable, he and Emily's story was recently dramatized in a titular film produced by Paramount Pictures based on the children's book series by Norman Bridwell. Many festivities are planned for Clifford's time here. These will include a special screening of the new film at the Denham Theater, which will be hosted by Emily and Clifford, a kaiju dog show that will feature Clifford and his fellow canine kaiju King Caesar, Ralph of Rampage fame, and Baragon and Lady Baragon. I don't think they quite count, but they'd be a nice draw, that's for sure. Okay, and rides on Clifford's back for the kids and, quote, kids at heart. Exclusive souvenirs will be sold in the Monster Island gift shop during Clifford's visit, which would be good Christmas gifts for the kaiju and animal-loving kids you know. Monster Island leads the world in kaijuological studies and recreation. Its Monsterland resort hosts thousands of tourists each year who come to wonder at the largest creatures in the world. The scientific facility, headed by Dr. Jun Yoshiro, continues to make breakthroughs in the understanding of these magnificent creatures and advocates for giant monster conservation and protection.
Okay. I don't know how I feel about this because bringing Clifford to the island would give someone the false security to believe he's actually a kaiju.
Well, hence why they make sure to state that his kaiju status is questionable.
No, like I thought the board said months ago that they have reviewed Clifford's file and found that he is not, in fact, a kaiju.
I have to say, I think this is purely a business venture.
Well, it's a stupid business venture.
Well, that's what happens when you get outed as a bunch of supervillains and nobody wants to come to your resort.
The board is full of banana oil.
Yes, but they also want money.
Well,
this might be the one time where capitalism trumps their supervillainy.
I guess. Capitalism trumps a lot of stuff, but wow. Okay. So now I'm torn because I was going to ask Jimmy to fly me to the mainland because I was supposed to watch Clifford tonight, actually, because we're going to be talking about it on episode 100 of Kaiju Weekly.
Yeah, don't say.
We are. Yeah. It's like that's by the time this episode comes out, episode 100 will already have happened, I think.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, if people are hearing this live on the island, but by the time it goes out as the podcast to the rest of the world, yes. Episode 100 will have happened.
So by the time that happens, the movie will have already passed, and Kaiju Weekly will have already had our 100th episode. And I was going to ask Jimmy to fly me back to the mainland because between you and me, I was supposed to have a date tonight to go watch.
Oh, you heard it here first, folks! An MIFV exclusive. The Lord Gatekeeper is finding himself a Lady Gatekeeper.
Well, I tell you what, Jimmy, if you'll do me a favor, if you can, if I give you her address, will you go and pick her up and bring her to the island and we'll just watch it here? Awesome. Thank you so much, Jimmy. I really appreciate it. Oh, but I might want to go with you so she's not freaked out when you land the SY3 in her backyard. All right. Sounds like a plan, man. I appreciate it. There's a bottle of Jack Daniels in it for you. Okay, well, one more bottle's not going to hurt you, man. Come on. Yeah. It's a gesture.
Yeah, sure. Now, we do have some things to take care of after today's broadcast. We have some paperwork that we have to fill out, so you can hang out at the island for a little bit. Go visit Anguirus for a little bit, and then we'll take care of that for you.
Sure.
Okay? But now, Michael, it's time for one of my favorite segments of the show. Are you ready for this?
Is it the mailbag?
Wrong show.
Oh. Oops. Is it our Godzuki score?
Also, wrong show.
Oh. Is it the Patreon shoutouts? Travis Alexander! Me!
Eli Harris!
Damon Noyce!
Chris Cook!
Bex from Redeemed Otaku!
Danny Damana! The Cellcast!
Elijah Thomas, a.k.a. the littlest gatekeeper who has wrong opinions about every single thing he says on Twitter.
Fury! You feel like you should be yelling Morphin time or something like that? Because don't you feel a little bit more powerful now?
It's Morphin time! Back to action.
Insert every Power Ranger catchphrase here.
Let's rock it! Shift into turbo.
Oh, that one.
Detox boobs. Astronomer's really hot. I mean, wait, hang on.
Freudian slips.
I have a poster of Kimberly on my wall, and I look at it every night before I go to bed. Wait, hang on. That is wrong. That is the wrong thing. Hang on. No. Sorry. That is way too much to share.
To quote Buzz Lightyear, you are a sad, strange little man. On a more serious note, you, Kaiju lovers, can get perks like this starting at just $3 a month by joining MIFV Max on Patreon. Also, we didn't have any listener feedback today, so please listen for the contact info during the credits so that you can send us emails to feed my mailbag, not Michael's mailbag, my mailbag, to get it read on a future episode of the show. Although I don't think my mailbag is quite as hangry as yours is.
Our mailbag is pretty hangry right now. Yeah.
Also, buy MIFV merch on TeePublic. That would be amazing. I'm actually working to get some more products up on the TeePublic store. I'm working with several artists who are making some stuff for me to add to that because, I mean, if the board has to resort to getting Clifford to come visit the island for a little while, I need to get my own funding by
your job may not be as secure as you think it is then.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, I suppose. But now, Michael, this is important because you're actually a little bit of a part of of what we have to discuss next, which are the next episodes of the Monster Island Film Vault. So, the year of Gamera will be coming to an end.
Thank God.
I was going to say some people will be sad, some people will be happy. But we're going to be talking about Gamera the Brave, the one other good Gamera movie.
The one that I used to hate but have fondly grown to love because it reminds me of my own childhood.
Yes, because the only people who don't like Gamera the Brave
are the
have no
ones.
heart or soul.
Mm-hmm. Or soul. Or are an alien. Or a Democrat.
I'm keeping that one. And my guest will be one of your fellow MIFV Max members, Michael.
Oh.
It's going to be Bex, and she's been on a big Pokemon kick. So I think I was accidentally genius when I asked her to be the guest for this episode, which was before she was on the Pokemon kick.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, I like Bex. I think Bex will do a great job. Hopefully, word of advice to Bex, get your security clearance in early. And hopefully you won't have to do everything yourself like I had to this time.
And rumor has it she might be bringing my pseudo-sister back to the island.
Your pseudo-sister is a lovely creature. I say creature because I'm not fully convinced she's actually human. But she's a
I might not get along with her all the time, but how dare you deny her personhood?
I mean, she's kind of hot too, not gonna lie.
Hey, back off, buddy. Back off, buddy. I don't care if she's my pseudo-sister or my real sister. I will go into Big Brother mode over this. Of course, she's also, she may or may not be a magical girl, so have fun with that. She might turn you into a toad or something.
Hey, you don't know. I may be into that.
Well, sure, you weirdo. Anyway, and then after that, it's hard to believe, Michael. It's hard to believe. But after that will be our season finale here on MIFV. And it's a Patreon-sponsored episode. In fact, it's one sponsored by you.
Ooh! That's coming up soon?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Nice. I'll be back sooner than what I anticipated. Then.
Yes. The thing is I still don't know what it's going to be over because you haven't told me. Being all top secret-y about this.
I wanted to keep it a surprise, honestly, and I think I still want to try to keep it a little bit close to the vest, but let me just say this. Your listeners, especially my fellow Patreon people that are the proud sponsors of the MIFV podcast, will be green with envy when they have to listen to that episode.
So Ang Lee's Hulk, you say?
Possibly.
That might be a little controversial.
Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you, it's flubber.
Oh, dang it! I do like Robin Williams, though.
I do. God bless Robin Williams. May he rest in peace.
Yes. Without Robin Williams, I wouldn't have my greeting for this show because Good Morning Vietnam. So, no episode of MIFV is complete without shameless self-promotion. So, what do you have for us today, Michael?
I'm excellent at shameless self-promotion. My name is Michael.
You might be almost as spiritually gifted at it as I am.
I'm actually probably more spiritually gifted at it than you, just saying. But I'm Michael. You can find me as co-host on the Kaiju Weekly podcast. We are a podcast that introduces you to the wide world of giant monster movies, not just Gamera, not just Godzilla, not just Ultraman, but we like to cover all the things. And by the time your listeners hear this episode, we will have already hit our 100th episode milestone, and we will be in the middle of an extended sabbatical. So if you are new to Kaiju Weekly, we will be going on sabbatical until January of 2022. That's just so that Travis and I can get a rest and work on some passion projects, some pretty powerful passion projects, might I add.
I was going to say, you might want to bring that up because we've technically already announced it.
Right. So
you came on Henshin Men, or rather I dragged you onto Henshin Men and we talked about it.
Yeah, I was on my way from vacation back in the States and I get a long distance call from Nate saying, "Hey, can you record long distance today for Henshin Men?" I was like, "Sure, what are we talking about?" The unaired pilot for Power Rangers. Done, my friend. Done.
Yeah, which was especially impressive because you're like, "I want to take a nap. You want to talk Power Rangers? Okay, fine. The nap can wait."
and then we talked about it, and then I took a nap. That's exactly how my day went.
Yes. But that passion project, that powerful passion project.
So basically,
I like the alliteration.
The powerful passion project that I'm talking about that's going to be particularly powerful. And we're going to pontificate over Power Rangers in a little project that Nathan and I are calling the Power Trip, a journey through the Power Rangers franchise, which will be a bi-weekly podcast that we're not going to do what other Power Rangers podcasts do, where we talk about episode by episode. This is going to be a limited series. We're going to spend the year of 2022 talking about each season of the Power Rangers per episode, because I have been on my own personal Power Rangers journey through the franchise, and I was almost there until Netflix decided to be until Netflix decided to pull their banana oil and take Power Rangers off of Netflix. Most of it. There's still some left over there. So I wanted to drag Nathan along, and we're going to talk about the Power Rangers franchise because, I'm a longtime Power Rangers fan. I think I'm a bigger Power Rangers fan even than Godzilla, if I'm even allowed to say that on this podcast. But sorry, big guy. I know you're listening. But yeah, I drug Nathan along because he's been on his own personal little power journey. We've even had we've had Zhu lunches and power lunches together. And so we're going to take the year of 2022 and do a bi-weekly podcast starting in January, talking about each season of the Power Rangers. I mean, it's going to be as in-depth as we can possibly make it, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're just going to kind of cover the themes and our favorite episodes and our impressions, and maybe by the end of it rank them as far as like what our favorite seasons are. I can already tell you what Nathan's favorite season is. It's Turbo.
Lies.
It's Turbo, and his favorite movie is news. Turbo, a Power Rangers movie.
So much fake news.
But that's what we're going to be doing together. That's the powerful passion project that I was talking about.
And not to brag, but
yeah.
Yeah, I did meet a ranger, turned out she was she was actually kind of one of my bosses here for a while, and I might have seen the Dragon Zord a few weeks ago.
Well, I got to ride on Serpentera, so I guess that counts for something.
Serpentera Mark III.
Yeah. It wasn't the OG. I wish it was the OG because that, man, I'd like to see the inside of that.
I'm not sure the OG is even around anymore.
Probably not. That thing just had some power issues.
Kind of like my laptop, but
But back to, a little bit on Kaiju Weekly. Just really quickly, I wanted to kind of continue what I said there. By the time you guys listen to this, we're going to be on break. We are going to have a bonus episode come out sometime in I think it's scheduled for December. While we're gone, we're going to do an interview with a fellow creator in the Godzilla community. So please be looking for that. But we will return in January of 2022 with all new episodes and maybe a little bit of a tweaked format. We don't know yet. I'm going to talk to Travis about that.
Mm-hmm. Our co-host in common.
Our co-host in common. Yeah. For better or for
I just realized that was an unintentional pun.
For better or for worse, our co-host in common. Also, I am the co-creator and the co-publisher of the Kaiju Rama magazine, which is a magazine that you, my dear friend, write for on occasion and do an excellent job at. It is a fan magazine. Basically, if anyone does not know by now what Kaiju Ramen is, I don't know if you don't know what it is, then shame on you. It is a fan-focused magazine written for Kaiju fans, by Kaiju fans. We just like to celebrate the genre and the community of Kaiju lovers, just like you guys out there. And we publish quarterly. We publish a digital version and a limited run of printed versions. There are still printed versions of issue 3 left. Surprise, surprise. Thank God we ordered extra ones this time around. So you can go and check out those and purchase a copy for yourself because the holidays are coming up, people. And if you have a significant other that is also a Kaiju fan and you want to get them a really special gift, go over to kaijuramamagazine.com/shop and get them a copy of issue 3 or a digital copy of all the other issues that are available. And that I'm sure they would really, really appreciate it. Outside of that.
If Kobayashi was around today, I think we would say, hey, make the lady gatekeeper in your life happy. Buy her Kaiju Ramen. That's no banana oil.
Wow. Wow. I like it. I wish that was how
I'll write that copy for you. You can make that ad.
I wish that was how we were signing this episode off, but alas, we are not. Outside of that, I'm just kind of roaming around on Twitter, just trying to cause trouble where I can.
Well, you should probably mention this. I know it's basically done, but you did have another show for a while that if people need something to listen to.
Oh, yeah. I forget about that one. Honestly, it's the Kaiju Groupie podcast. It was a podcast that I did with a bunch of fellow fans, just like Nathan and our friend Danny and Travis and others, where I sat down and had one-on-one interviews with other Kaiju lovers out in the community. And it ran for about 12 episodes. A lot of great guests on there, like Frankie B. Washington, the comic book artist, Danny DeMana of the Godzilla Novelization Project, you, Nathan, Lisa Knapziger, who is another fantastic artist, Kaiju Hime, and some others that I'm probably forgetting right now. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to talk to those guys and girls on the show. And it's no longer in publication. I doubt that it's going to come back at this point. And I always used to say that it was going to come back at some point. But honestly, given my schedule now, I doubt it. I doubt that I have time, honestly, for a one-on-one show like that.
Yeah, but that gap is being filled by our friend and my previous guest on the show for Gamera 3, Kaiju Kim, with their live streams. So
it is. I'm glad that people like Kim exist because, Kim has certainly picked up the mantle of being the person to go to for a one-on-one interview. In fact, I don't know when I think it's supposed to be out at the time of this publication, but she actually has an interview with Norman England coming out about his brand new book. So I'm super happy for Kim. Congratulations to Kim and all that she's doing with her YouTube channel. We really, really appreciate her at Kaiju Ramen and Kaiju Weekly. She's been she's been a fan of ours and a huge support and just a huge inspiration for Travis and I, and we just really appreciate her.
That's for sure. All right. With that, like I said, I've got some things to take care of, Jimmy and I, after today's broadcast. So, Jimbo, get over it. Cue credits. Thank you for listening to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast produced and hosted by Nate Marchand. If you enjoy the show and want to join the discussion, we'd love to hear from you. So email us at feedback@monsterislandfilmvault.com. Your message could be read on a future episode of the show. Our website is monsterislandfilmvault.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Monster Island Film Vault, and on Twitter, where our handle is at TheMonsterIsla1. You can also follow Jimmy from NASA on Twitter at NASAJimmy, and the Monster Island Board of Directors at Monster Isla BOD. I have fulfilled my contractual obligations! And be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, and Twitch. The podcast logo was created by Tyler Souls from TylerDrawsComics.com. Our theme song is Wanderer on the Offensive, live edit by B33J, Sarax, Juan Madrano, and Nonsensical Lexus, which is a remix of Counterattack, Battle with the Colossus, and The Open Way, Battle with the Colossus by Kowatani from the video game Shadow of the Colossus. All film and audio clips belong to the respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended or implied. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and or Podchaser to spread the word about the show. You can also support us by joining MIFV Max on Patreon. The Monster Island Film Vault is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production. Sayonara! Raymond's here? Okay, tell Gary to...
Good to see you, Marchand. And you too, Crane. Here's the official documents for the class action lawsuit against those dastardly bastards we call bosses.
Oh, jeez, that's a lot!
I just need you and Crane to sign on the dotted lines on page 29, 42, 77, 83, and 101 to 120.
Okay, but...
I also came here to tell you that with no paralegal assistance and the island's future in doubt, I will be closing the legal action team's office and going into early retirement.
Early?
It's just that I haven't been the same without Gary. He was very nearly my right arm. My
Raymond,
Man Friday, the son I never had. Son I never had time to have. He was the perfect person.
Shut up and
brought me coffee every morning, donuts, the good kind with the sprinkles.
Say something, Gary.
I mean,
I would, but...
I hope you understand. I mean, now please, excuse me because I need to visit the crapper, but I'll be right back.
Hey, Raymond, need me to deliver those legal documents for you?
Gary? Gary, you're alive! It's good to see you again, Gary. I knew there was no way any paralegal of mine could end up as Gyaos Guano.
Right. But wait until you hear how it happened. It's quite a story.
He can tell me all about it while filling out the forms to make himself legally undead.
I'm not a zombie, Raymond.
On Monster Island, you could never be too sure.
He has a point.
I'm in the market for a new paralegal. Want the job?
Do I ever? But, Raymond, can I be honest with you?
Always, Gary.
Well, I was thinking we might want to hire a full-time investigator to help us with our cases so I could focus on other jobs.
Our own gumshoe, you say? I don't see why not. Do you have anyone in mind?
Oh, yeah, Osaka-san.
The Osako. The guy who survived encounters with Gamera's greatest foes despite a horrible streak of bad luck. Get him on the horn with me right now and he's got the job.
Awesome.
I hate to interrupt this happy little reunion, but what happened to your accent there, Raymond?
What in blazes are you talking about, Marchand?
When you saw Gary alive, your transatlantic accent suddenly disappeared.
You must have a bad case of reefer madness, Marchand, because I've talked like I've always talked since I spoke my first word. Capital! As a kiddo.
Ah, of course.
Now, Gary.
In a pig's eye.
Huh.